Good morning once again and welcome to this segment where you can be able to call in and be part of the discussion. Of course, today we are looking at a very important topic, which is corruption, but with specific emphasis at the Inspectorate of Government Act 2000. Many people are not even aware that we have this act that empowers institutions, empowers you to fight corruption. Lately, there was a launch of a pocket-friendly version that every Ugandan can easily move with. And this is what I'm holding here, where every Ugandan can easily move with, access it, a simplified version. But within the studios, we are having a non-governmental organization, that is Uganda Death Network, who played a key role in ensuring that they are part of this process. And within the studios, I have, that is Christine Ngiro, who is the program officer, a policy analysis, and of course, governance from this institution. You're most welcome.
Thank you very much, and good morning, viewers.
And of course, another lady, that is Esther Mufumba, programs officer, that is Citizen Empowerment Engagement Program, that is Uganda Death Network. You're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers.
One of the things that have really piqued interest is when I've been looking through this book, and I want to read to Ugandans. That is the vision of Uganda Death Network. That is a Uganda where public resources are prudently and sustainably and equitably managed. That is very interesting. And then their mission to generate advocacy, expertise that influences people best. That's where I want us to focus more. People best and accountable public resource management in Uganda. To begin with, Esther, when we talk about Uganda Death Network, it is a non-government organization. What do you do as an NGO?
Thank you very much. Uganda Death Network is a policy advocacy organization that works to promote and advocate for poor and marginalized groups to participate in decision-making processes, monitor government programs, government policies, then hold duty bearers accountable to make sure that public resources are well utilized in an open and transparent manner. That is what Uganda Death Network. We empower communities. We are looking at people who are at the local level to involve themselves in monitoring service delivery, because they are the end users of all the services that are being provided by government. We are talking about decision-making processes, that is participating in the planning and budgeting processes, that is at local level and at national level, so that they can prioritize their needs rather than just being end users. So they have to prioritize their needs at local and at national level. That is briefly what
I like two words: poor and marginalized. Empower them in this process. Well, that brings me to Christine. Christine, when we look at the Inspectorate of Government, that is Act 2000, it's been around for some time. Why this time do we see you pattern to come up with a book of this size, this type, a simplified and also simplified version?
Thank you very much. Maybe just to add on to what Esther said, Uganda Debt Network was formed in 1996 to lobby for debt relief for Uganda, because our debt was really high. So this was achieved. And so instead of packing our bags and going home, one of the conditionalities, though, that was given was that the country should channel these resources, which was supposed to pay back, into addressing the poverty situation. So you had that's when they formed the PAF, if you remember, the Poverty Action Fund. And this money was put there to address, challenges in education, in the agriculture sector, in the health sector. So we decided to now follow up the implementation, or rather the use of these monies, So that is why we thought the citizen, who should be the beneficiary, should be at the center of this, of managing or monitoring these funds.
Let me just ask something. Do you believe at Uganda Date Network that one of the reasons we have a high date burden is because of the inability of the inspectorate to perform its utmost constitutional duty?
Well, I do not believe that, because that duty
is there a connection?
Well, partly, to a smaller extent, because I wouldn't put the blame on the Inspectorate of Government alone.
Directly.
Because we have various institutions, accountability institutions, which are charged with this role.
For example?
So they're supposed to, you have the Auditor General, you have even Parliament,
Court.
You have the PPDA, you have the Judiciary. So it is, we need to see them, like work in a network to achieve this. Yeah?
Okay.
But back to your question, yes, this law has been around for some time. And one of the things we have found out, working with our constituents, that is mainly the communities in the different districts, is that much as the laws are in place, they do not know about these laws. Okay. They do not know the provisions. As a matter of fact, last year, I was conducting a training in Ruchiga district. So one of the elements of this training was to go through the legal and institutional framework for citizens to monitor. So I asked if, and there were 40 participants, I asked how many knew about the existence of a constitution in Uganda. Half of the hands went up. And I asked how many had seen a constitution. 7 hands went up. And when I asked how many had actually read or knew any provision from the constitution, all the hands went down. And unfortunately, this group was comprised of duty bearers, of community members, and so it was really absurd. So when I went to the institutions, like the Inspectorate of Government, the PPDA, of course, they did not have knowledge. So sometimes we take these things for granted, but it's important that we extend these laws to the public. We have them on shelf. Even when you ask around, even in Kampala at the national level, there are very few people who will have some of these laws at home or know the provisions. So since corruption is widespread, we think people, citizens interface with this problem on a daily basis. Our monitors do conduct monitoring. They find, corruption cases, but sometimes they do not know how to bring this to the duty bearers. The processes, for example, the officers of the IG, or they do not know the provisions of these laws. So that's why we always come up with this pocket-friendly version. This is not the full IG Act. Just like you can see, it is the parts 3, 5, and 6. These are the most relevant for the ordinary man.
Okay.
Yeah?
Esther, when you talk about empowering the poor and marginalized, who is the ordinary man, actually supposed to benefit from these services, that corruption has hindered him to benefit. What is the ability of this ordinary person? Say, an ordinary man in my village, if he has this law and is able to read and understand it, how is he empowered to go to a Felix, who's a district chairperson, who has embezzled funds, and try to create accountability?
Thank you very much. UDN has, the way it has empowered an ordinary citizen out there who is poor, as you wrote it. We usually conduct first capacity building trainings, or you can call them awareness trainings, like Christine has highlighted, where we train citizens, communities down there on the legal and institutional framework. Here we're talking about policies. We simplify them, like this book has been simplified, so that any layman can read. And when we train them in the local dialect and in English, to make it friendly for someone to grasp what you're talking about, we bring in the local dialect depending on where they're coming from. And at the same time, after the training, we are training them in legal institution framework. We are talking about participatory monitoring and evaluation. We are talking about the local government and planning process. We are talking about advocacy because we want them to be the main actors at that level. So after the training, we give them a chance to go and monitor government programs. For example, I'll just quote health, the health sector. When we have the monitoring tools, you go monitor with them the issues that they should be critical about. And incidentally, most of them, they are telling you the issues that they are suffering, that they are facing on a day-to-day basis. For example, they'll tell you we are not accessing drugs in this health facility. And at this health facility, they'll ask, why didn't you get the drugs? And maybe they'll tell you, we've taken long to receive these drugs. So from there, a small report is written, and it is taken to for example, the district health officer, the COW. Why we are doing this, it is to show them that these are service providers and they can interact with them on a day-to-day basis. After, that's when we have they're called interface meetings or accountability platforms, because we believe the duty bearers you're talking about, the COW, that is the Chief Administrative Officer, the RDC, who's in charge of monitoring government programs, is also involved, where we have these accountability meetings, and you could call them barazas, that is under OPM, where the communities will interface with the duty bearers to tell them what they are experiencing. And these dialogues are facilitated by themselves, whereby it will be discussed in the local dialect, where whether women, the people with disability, people living with HIV, we believe the person who's suffering from an issue, they can easily talk about it themselves. So if people living with HIV are saying we haven't accessed drugs at the health center, they're in position to talk for themselves rather than me, who hasn't been at that facility. People with disability, the issues they are experiencing at a health facility, we believe they're in better position to talk about their needs rather than me, who's not living with them. So that's why we talk about, they're able to talk about the issues with the duty bearer.
How does it relate to the fight against corruption?
It relates in this way. For example, I've talked about health. When you go to a health facility like I highlighted, if government is saying we delivered medicine at this health facility, and here our Wananchi has gone to a health facility, but they are not finding drugs at the center. Why aren't there drugs? So definitely that means there's a mismatch, because the National Medical Stores is saying we deliver drugs, and here I've gone as an ordinary citizen, there are no drugs. At that time we need to find where there's a mismatch, because there are instances where health workers, maybe when the drugs have been delivered, health workers are taking the drugs into their private health facilities. That is already corruption at that level. The drugs are supposed to be to serve the communities out there, but here I am as a health worker who's taking the drugs in my private clinic. When a community member comes for treatment, I'm telling them there's no drugs.
There is no drugs, yes.
So I'll send this person to my private clinic. That is corruption in a sense.
But
let me just ask something. How far can
this compressed version, the pocket version, go in the fight against corruption? I imagine that is the basic intention. How far can it go? We are targeting the rural people, the Wananchi, the villagers, because they need to also stand up against this aspect of corruption, or to aid the processes, like for example the inspectorate. But how far can this move, in particular the pocket size?
Just like we noted, we know, you and I both know, that majority of Uganda's population is mainly rural. And we also know that the fight
rural
against
and
corruption,
illiterate.
Exactly. And we also know that the biggest number of this population do not access some of these laws. And yet, if we want to fight or eliminate corruption, or reduce, for that matter, corruption, it has to be people-centered. United we stand, divided we fall. So it has to be an effort of the people that has to see this vice out. So when you produce, because our work, at least our experience, has shown that these people, the population there, the rural population in the communities, they do not know about these laws. They don't know about their existence, and yet they interface with these cases on a daily basis. They are stranded. So this is more like a link between them and maybe reporting cases of corruption. And we have seen, we've seen positive, change, because this is not the first time we are producing, or rather simplifying, these pocket-friendly versions of the laws. We've done so many more: the Whistleblowers Act, the Anti-Corruption Act, the Public Service Standing Orders. So over time, when we identify a need, we always see how to address this need.
There are quite a number of activities.
So one of the things, at least we know, these laws are not, some of these people, even those who are supposed to implement them at the lower local levels, they do not know some of the provisions. For instance, if you look at Section 13, under powers of access and search, trust me, there are so many people out there who do not know that it is only the IG, the Inspector General, or the Deputy Inspector General who has to sanction the search warrant. But people do not know this, and officers at the regional levels will always go and search without these warrants. So that is violating people's rights, and sometimes intentionally or unknowingly. So when this comes out to light, when people get to know this, they will be able to ask, if you're searching me, where is the search warrant? Yeah, some of these questions they are able to ask because they have a basis.
Yes, we know knowledge is power, and when we empower people, they are able to stand up for their rights. But you see, the issue of corruption is a cancer that even when those know, those that are empowered, fighting becomes a problem. Let's look at the content of this pocket-friendly, that is, Act since 2000. When you look at the content, is it strong enough? Does it give enough powers to fight corruption? I've been looking at one of the clauses that I was reading, which is limitations of the office of the, that is IGG, and really I'm wondering, having this content, I'm a layman, even those that sometimes know and have, lack the capacity to boldly stand up and fight corruption.
Yes, I believe the content in here is adequate, and if implemented, would actually go a long way in eliminating and reducing corruption. The only challenge I see here is sometimes, not sometimes, but most often, some of our institutions are not independent. They're actually not operating independently. Their mandate is to act independently, but they are not. So there are so many challenges. I'll talk of political will, interference, and so that has, last year we saw the IG come out and complain about, the big fish who always invoke the president's name when they are, identified, and maybe they try to prosecute them. So I do not see anything, because our laws really, I don't need to, repeat this.
But we've had so many times people coming up and saying the legal regime, the legal system, that our laws. I want to get your view on that.
No, we have an excellent legal regime. What I believe, actually, in this country, maybe we could talk about the political will. We have three components of the political will. If you want to know that there's political will to fight corruption, do you have the laws? Yes. And the laws, I think, are rich. We have the Anti-Corruption Act, which was amended in 2015 to even provide for confiscation of properties. We have the IG Act, we have so many laws. We have the institutions, quite a number of them. Yeah. Sometimes, we have so many institutions that are probably, like doing the same work, but the institutions are excellent. The only challenge is the implementation. So when you have the laws, the institutions, and you implement, then there's political will. But if you have the laws, the institutions, and then you're lacking in implementation of these laws, if the institutions cannot be independent enough to implement the laws, then there's a problem. You will not fight corruption.
Esther, do you intend to put this in Lugwere, Acholi, Lango, Itesot, Lufombira, Luganda? I would imagine when we talk about the biggest population of Ugandans being the ones in probably abstract poverty, which is a matter of fact, and you did talk about the aspect of rural numbers, which is a fact. After saying all those things, you must also say the illiterate also belong to the widest. Do you think this is going to cause a relevancy of the intention? If it is stuck in a language they can't read, they can't write, they can't comprehend.
Thank you. I would say the intention is very good. We need to translate into the local dialect for the different groups, categories of people where we are operating. But I have to say, if funds permit. Because translating in the local dialect requires resources. So we must say funds permit. But before we do the translation, what we can do, we need we have radio talk shows in the different areas where we are operating. And these radio talk shows are conducted in the local dialect. So with the community members that we work with, this act, the friendly version, can be discussed on radio so that as we are waiting for translation into the local dialect, the wananchi out there are able to get to know what is in this booklet. For them, where they're supposed to report any corruption incidences within their areas. Because this version is pocket friendly. So we believe once the radio talk shows have been aired, this is creating awareness so that as in the meantime as you're waiting for the translation, at least people are following what is in this version.
Where did you launch this?
And then maybe just to add on to what Esther said, like we believe it's actually not very true that all the rural population are illiterate or cannot read and write in English. Yes, there are those who cannot, but there are some, at least in the, and we go and pick our monitors right from the village levels, yeah? So most of them actually do understand, they can read and write, simple English of course, yeah, because that is how they do the monitoring of government programs, and then they generate reports which are in English to share with the duty bearers at the different levels. So yes, would love to translate this, but like she said, funds permitting, just like we would want to work in the whole country, but we are limited to only a few, just over 20 districts, yeah, which we think is a bit challenging. So resources permitting.
Okay, well, I just want to remind our viewer that at 8:10, you'll be able to call in just a few minutes from now and ask a question, be part of this discussion as we look at the Inspectorate of Government Act 2002, a pocket-friendly version, simplified for you to read and understand how best you can be part of the fight against corruption. I like these words, the poor and marginalized. You're the most affected because little are you beneficiaries of corruption. In most of the cases, they're just siphoning what belongs to you and taking it away. So can this empower you? If knowledge is power, here it is. How is it going to help you transform your lives by fighting corruption? But
I'll ask something about when you did launch this book. I understand you did launch it with the Inspectorate, yes, and you also managed to be a part of the walk of the anti-corruption walk
yes,
with His Excellency. Just two questions. One, since you launched this book, do you think there's been public reception to cause change as you intended it to, or have even results up till now already? Or?
Well, the IG, because we have been working with the Office of the IG to produce this pocket-friendly version, which was launched on 9 December. That was the International Anti-Corruption Day. That was Monday this week. We then distributed to the people that were present that day. Most were students in Parliament. So we have not yet seen results per se, because this is just, 2 days later? Yeah, but drawing from past experience, like I told you, we produced a simplified pocket-friendly version of the public service standing orders, and we saw immense change, great change. And mainly, our campaign was against the misuse of government vehicles. So there's a lot of change. Sometimes the impact, you do not see it immediately, but when you're interacting with different people, with different stakeholders, they will tell you, oh, because of this, I decided to do this. We actually saw some institutions of government giving out policy guidelines on how their vehicles should be managed, because that time we encouraged our stakeholders, if you see a government vehicle being misused, just take a snapshot and send it. Then we print this out. We put it in the newspapers, and it became so, it was such a huge campaign because people's lives were even threatened, but of course that is expected. There's top government officials, though, who were talking with, and he said, if your campaign was so effective that I went to the village with a government car, and when I was coming back, they gave me a goat, which I actually rejected because I didn't have a tarpaulin to cover. So, and I was worried you'd take a picture and put it out there. So there's actually impact. Yeah, there's impact.
Esther, I want to get it from you. When you talk about corruption, and of course having such a very lovely, simplified version of the Inspectorate of Government Act, has the public gotten interest in fighting corruption? I was in Gulu, that is about early this year, and some of the districts in northern Uganda, central, I'm not yet sure, but I believe you've seen this. They have a noteboard, is it something, where they display the monies they have gotten, the projects they're supposed to do. Most of northern Uganda is doing very well. And people come to this district. But I wasn't seeing those interested to know that, okay, this is the money we've received, this is what we've done. Come back to Central here. We have Ugandans that have reached a point of believing corruption is part of us. It has come to stay. We cannot fight it. We can just take advantage where we can. So what have you done to interest the people? You give this book to me, you give it to anybody, and you'll just add on, maybe in their study room and all this. Because they think all is lost.
Thank you. All I would say is we don't want people to say that all is lost because of corruption. That's why we are here. And we've seen the president himself joining us to say, please, we need to fight corruption. Whether down there at the local level, we are saying if you see some of these incidences happening, it should be in our interest as community people or any person out there, where we should participate in government processes. If you're saying one of the leaders you feel is acquiring wealth in an abnormal way, we are saying let's monitor. And monitoring, we work with government institutions which are encouraging transparency and accountability. For example, a quota Ministry of Finance, whereby they have gone ahead to put this information online to access the releases that is on a quarterly basis. And it's on our website, which is www.budget.go.ug. This is where they are encouraging citizens to go and track the budgets, the expenditures of their local governments. For example, in a quarter where they will say, this project has been allocated 20 million. If I'm an ordinary citizen, if I access that, that information, it should be of interest to say, Ministry of Finance is saying, we sent to, I'll just use an example of maybe a health facility. We'll say, in this quarter, we sent 20 million for construction of this housing facility, for this purchase of this, because they'll go ahead and indicate what the money is going to be used for. So as communities, we shouldn't say, okay, if this facility received the 20 million, how have they utilized this money? Only to say, in a quarter, if Ministry of Finance sent this money, but in a quarter nothing has taken place. This is where we'll say, let's come out and go interact with, for example, the in charge. If, as Uganda Debt Network, we go ahead and print out all the releases, because, you know, in this country, as in the urban center, people can access internet. But down there, people don't access internet, because this information, you can only access it online. But we print out all the releases and share with our people in our constituency. It's in English, but it shows at even the lowest unit in a local government, if it's at sub-county level, they will show how much was sent to that sub-county. So once we share this information with our community-based monitors that are locally based in the village, they're able to monitor to, for example, if 20 million was sent to a health facility, they'll go and find out what was the money used for. If they find any anomaly in the utilization of funds, we've said they will generate a report and even share with the people at the health facility, so that before we go there, it is at the district and even shared with the RDC to say what we found on the ground versus the money that was released from Ministry of Finance.
Then that is a point of action.
Yeah, point of action, the first point of action, because we don't want to run away from local level. You're running at the IGG or you're running to the regional offices without getting proper information from the duty bearers, because sometimes the ministry will tell you, we've sent money at the local government. But the local government, the time we haven't received the money. So you need to first have a discussion. That's why we are saying we cause a dialogue between the users and the providers.
Well, Esther, allow me, the public is now time that they can communicate, the people with whom the intention of such a pocket-friendly version is to empower. We need to get from you and get your views. Hello, good morning. Well, please move away from your TV set or reduce the volume completely, then we'll be able to get you. The number is 0702 23 24 25, and that's the number on your screen. So please call and be part of this discussion. We want to know how best can we fight corruption. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. This is Councillor calling you from Kagadi.
Yes, Livingstone from Kagadi.
Thank you for the program and the service, plus our guest today.
Okay.
I was going to raise the issue of councillors not having knowledge on how to interpret some of these instruments. When you look at the councillors at local councils, let's say district and even sub-county, most of these councillors, there's no qualification for someone to be a district councillor. So you have to find that even a P7 dropout will come and contest as a district councillor, come into council. You're going to deal with graduates, people with masters. So interpreting some of these statutory instruments will be very difficult for some of these councillors. So qualification on councillors, that's one. Then when it comes to monitoring government programs, you'll find that most of these councillors, they cannot interpret BOQs, let me say bills of quantities. For example, if a road is going to be worked on, a 15-kilometer road, you have to read the BOQs. What's the size of the road? Does it need sport maraming? So you find that an illiterate councillor cannot be able to see, to interpret these bills of quantities, so that to monitor the implementation of government programs. Then I'll also give another issue. For example, in the Kadaga district, we received around 11 million coffee seedlings. But when you look at the 11 million coffee seedlings that we received, if you went to gardens to make an audit, you will not find them. You find that someone who was given an allocation of to supply 150,000 coffee seedlings, he has only 50,000 in his garden, but then the allocation is saying 150. You see, that means the other coffee seedling will be dumped and government will have to lose money. And you find people who are involved are leaders, we political leaders, and even the technical people at the district. So you find that fighting this corruption is a syndicate. So you find a local person down will have to suffer. Then, as I conclude,
yes, finally,
I would request Uganda Data Network to come in Kadaga also and talk to our people, sensitize them. Make sure that these people they get well versed with different laws and statutory instruments. I want to thank you.
Okay, thank you, Livingstone. That is from Kagadi, a district councillor there, raising pertinent issues there, and of course the ability of councillors even to understand, read, interpret. That is some of the documents, bills of quantities, and all this. And he said, you should go. They also need some of this information. Well, my lines are still open and the number is on your screen, but please, if you're going to be part of this discussion by calling in, move away from your TV set. Just step away and also reduce the volume of your TV set. Then we'll be able to communicate. And of course, our guests in studios will be able to respond effectively to your question you will have put to them in the studios. That is the number on your screen. Feel free to call and also be a bit brief. Let's first, in the meantime, look at what Livingstone has raised.
Yes, the issues Livingstone has raised are definitely pertinent. Mainly, they complement what we are discussing.
His first issue was qualification of district councillors.
The councillors, yes. The council, of course, with those qualifications, which is very true, they are not able to easily understand some of these laws.
Because the law does not put any qualification
for it. It does not. They are not easily able to understand these laws. And one of the things we do as Uganda Data Network, when we go out to the communities to probably do trainings and refresher trainings for our community-based monitors, we also involve the local government officials. Yeah, we want to, bring all the duty bearers at one table. So we pick some people from government, we bring in some of the councillors. Of course, we cannot pick everyone. Yeah, so we educate all of them, and we give them these laws. Yeah, as many copies as we possibly can. Yeah, but because really that is one of the challenges we have identified, that even the duty bearers, the councillors at the district, they sometimes do not appreciate these laws. And when you educate them, we have seen some changes. Yeah, we have seen some changes taking place because they appreciate some of them, and then they begin doing things right.
Maybe, Esther, what is your coverage area? Because it says you should come to Kagadi. Are you in how many districts out of the 140 something?
We are.
But let's first pick this caller, then I'll come. Hello, good morning. Please reduce the volume of your TV set. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
We'll get that discussion.
Yes, just give me your name and where you're calling from. You're live on TV.
On this?
You're live on TV. We are getting you. Please just give me your name.
I'd like to join that
discussion. But reduce the volume of your TV. Reduce the volume or turn it down. Please, then go ahead. Sorry, I lost you. Our viewer, please kindly reduce the volume of your TV set. Once you hear me speak to you, then it is okay. We'll be able to communicate. You don't have to get that feedback for you to respond, but the number is on your screen and you can call and be part of the discussion. Yes, you're still responding to the area of coverage.
UGN is currently in 20 districts.
Okay.
20 districts. We are in Western, we are in Eastern, then Karamoja region, then Far East. Maybe I could highlight some of the districts. If we talk about the West, we are talking about Kanungu, we are in Chiga, we are in Rubirizi, then we come Masindi, then we're in Ushenyi.
When you say you were there, what do you mean?
Uganda Data Network.
Direct implementation.
You have
structures.
offices, yes. Oh.
Structures, not like offices, field offices, but we work with community-based monitors who are our entry, and some of the, in those districts, there are CBOs. Those are entry points in the district. So you have to.
Can they be fast, instant points of connection for people who intend to probably whistleblowing?
Yes.
Purposes of issues, try to raise complaints. Do you have people on ground who can be of help? Yes. For example, like even explaining in local languages. Okay, that's great.
So when we talk about training and then the community-based monitors, these are the people we are talking about. Maybe briefly, UDN has over time gone out to these different communities, the districts. We identify a district, we go and establish that structure, which is comprised of different men, women, like people with disabilities, persons living with HIV/AIDS, and so we train them. There are quite a number. We usually have like 100 sometimes, or more. And these are, we train, we do, we keep training and refresher trainings and all that. So over time, communities have actually relied on them so much because they appreciate these things.
Of trainees. Okay, let's speak also another caller. Hello, my line is open. Please just give me your name and where you're calling from. Hello? Yes, give me your name and where you're calling from.
Yes,
but please reduce the volume of your TV. I can get the echo. Okay, be a bit more audible and just go ahead now. Your name and where you're calling from. You're calling from? Yes. Naye bambi kendeeza ku ddoboozi lya TV oba giviire olyoka oyogera. Kati genda maaso.
Badde njala kwogera ku gavumenti esobola okukola okukendeeza ku nguzi ekiridde mu Uganda.
Sebo Teesa, genda maaso tuwamanya ne gy'osinzidde oteesa naye toyongeza ddoboozi lya TV yo. So you lost that one, and please kindly move away from the TV set when you're calling to be part of this discussion. Mukwano bw'oba okuba essimu tosembera TV. Hello? Well, we still have that challenge.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you.
Your name and where you're calling from?
I'm Kadaga, Alex.
You're calling from?
Kadaga, Alex.
Calling from?
From Community.
From Buyukwe? Okay.
Community.
Okay, go ahead.
According to the program that I am hearing, it's good, but we need to go up to grassroots. We need to go up to grassroots such that people can be aware about government programs and how the money are being established.
Okay, thank you, Alex.
We are being misused, and I had never seen your team coming to the district to eradicate people about the program.
Okay. Which district is that? Buyukwe? Rukunjiri district. Okay. Thank you so much, Alex. from Rukunjiri district, but you had, I think, network problems or something like that. But he was talking about we need to go to the grassroots, meet these people, and speak to them, which I think you're trying to.
From Kagadi,
yes,
and now someone from Rukunjiri.
So Rukunjiri people, in case you're not there, they're waiting for you.
And Kagadi.
Unfortunately, resources wouldn't allow.
No.
Resources allowing, we definitely would want
should
to cover
prioritize now those two.
Those invitations.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, time is not our best ally, but let's pick this final caller. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Hello.
Good morning, how are you?
Hello, you're live on UBC TV.
Good morning, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing? Who am I speaking
Yes,
to?
I'm hearing you. I'm good.
Yeah, gentlemen, it's just impossible for us to communicate effectively if you want to listen to yourself as you're still on TV. With that, I'm now closing phone calls, and we are getting back to the people in studios. As we wind up, let's look at the investigative mechanism briefly. Reporting lines, how effective have they been?
Thank you very much. Allow me to comment on something you had talked about this law and many others. Despite their existence, people have seemed, they are apathetic. And what can spark that, interest to report and to fight corruption, I believe, is when you see case changes, what we usually call case changes, when communities are, their awareness is raised, and they are able to walk to a duty bearer and tell them this is wrong, and then the duty bearer does the right thing. When they see something different happening, they are encouraged to continue and do better work, to monitor. But unfortunately, when they see selective prosecution, and that is mainly at the center, we see selective prosecution. We have seen the big cases and the big fish swimming. Maybe as an example, we'll look at the Mukula case just as an example.
Among the many,
yes,
if I could help you.
That was the Global Fund.
Gavi Fund,
yes.
Where he was actually convicted him and sentenced him for swindling over 200 million. But the president came out and gave him 100 million, for the lawyers to help him, with his defense and all that. So when you see such cases, you see the speaker coming out last month and talking about the 24 billion that was supposed to be for the Isimba Dam Bridge. She raised this to the president in March this year, and up to now nothing has happened. That's actually one of the main reasons I went to Kololo to listen to the president.
And tell him, did you tell him?
I thought he would say something about that, but he was more passionate about, like defilement cases, the headmasters. So if we could have that passion against corruption, these big, funds that are involved, when an ordinary man sees this, even if it were me, and I see all this passing, I really lose the hope. And,
exactly.
People have lost the hope. Even if they report, nothing will happen. The corrupt will just go scot-free. So, like you were saying, the investigative processes sometimes are definitely mad with irregularities. Yes. Sometimes, the corruption that is, in this country, it has become systematic. So
and syndicated.
Yes. So you do not. Sometimes people even do not bother going to, to report some of these cases because they believe they will not get justice.
Okay.
You also blow, and then your cover is just blown, and then they come for you. So we have government. The population has lost hope even in the investigative processes. They are interfered with most of the cases, most of the time. So people are a bit hesitant because of that, and they have become apathetic.
Okay, Esther, in a minute as we wind up, your message to Ugandans who have been watching this show.
Dear viewers, I'm still encouraging you, report all the corruption cases, any incidents of corruption in the regional offices, IGG regional offices, that is in Saroti, the different regional offices. Please report these cases to IGG so that action can be taken. Let's not lose hope, because we've borrowed resources and we have to service the debt that we've borrowed. So let's fight corruption by making sure that all the borrowed resources, the public resources, are well utilized to the benefit of all Ugandans.
Yeah, and maybe to mention that currently our debt has hit 45 trillion, and our national budget is at 40 trillion. So really that is a bit worrying. Our debt is much more than what we can raise. Yeah. So we encourage viewers to, of course, report corruption, but we also call upon government to fast track some of these things. We have a leadership code tribunal that is not yet in place. Government has kept promising. They have issued out, calls, and they say they're employing the members of the tribunal, but we want it constituted because this corruption is too much and you have nowhere to go. We want a witness protection law. When you whistleblow, you become a witness. You're not safe. You're not safe at all. So, of course, the resources, we want these institutions, accountability institutions, we want them resourced enough. Auditor General's report, very excellent, but they never go through.
No action.
Parliament takes years and years to consider them. So you have these irregularities repeating themselves over and over again.
Well, I want to thank you ladies for being part of this show, and I want to end with the words that I've gotten from Christine here that explain what the will to fight corruption is. That is, have the good laws, have institutions in place, we have the laws, we have the institutions, then finally, let's have the implementation, and then corruption will be something long forgotten in Uganda. Forgotten in my country, I just want to wish you a lovely day. We shall have the quote of the day, and don't forget, Ruben will be here to give you all the updates in the world of sports. Good morning, till tomorrow.